Good morning, everyone. We always have to get all these wonderful technical things happening. And Anwar is with me this morning. Anwar Jumabhoy. Joe, was
Close,
like,
close, Jumabhoy. Yeah. Think of Juma girl, Jumabhoy. Yeah.
where I was close. And Anwar is all the way in Malaysia. I'm thinking you might win the prize for the farthest interview I might have
Well,
conducted.
yep. You're gonna do a lot more, Sari. So you never know.
Well, I'm so thrilled to have you. It is 10 o'clock at night. And so I haven't woken you up early, but you've had a full day. So I thank you for being with me today. You've had 40 years of business and management experience covering several different industries. So I think, I read over your bio and there were so many things you've done that have, sort of fascinated me. And in just the small amount of time, I thought maybe you could just tell people who are watching today a little bit about yourself. And then, what I do for sure want to do is also talk about you have a new book out. And so
Correct.
I
Yes.
definitely want to get to that. But give us a little bit of, who you are.
Okay. So I mean, I studied engineering, an aspect of engineering called naval architecture, and it seemed like a great thing to do. But once I got into it and I started working, I realized that really didn't excite me. So I spent my first sort of part of my career as a naval architect building ships in the UK and then in Singapore. And then I went through a period of, what do I want to do?
Mhm.
And so I think I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do. But I like experimenting and I like new things. And so I've sort of always wavered between having a job and working for myself and having a job and
Yeah.
working for myself. And typically I end up having a job because when I work for myself, it didn't go well a couple of times. And so, when it doesn't go well, then you sort of try and do anything you want, anything that your skill set can, allow you to do. And you try and bounce back, right? So, and
Yeah.
that's part of being entrepreneurial. And I know that, Sari, you speak a lot about entrepreneurship. And so
And don't you,
that's
and,
what
well,
excites me.
I think when I do talk to entrepreneurs, one of the things I learn and have so much respect for is the fact that every entrepreneur tells me about their failures. They talk about their successes, but they don't hesitate to talk about, not necessarily, in great detail, but because most would rather talk about their successes, but that in order to be successful in anything and an entrepreneur is you're going to have those failures. You're going to climb the mountain, slide back down, and climb again.
Well, the analogy, well, there's two responses, Sari. One is, in my book, we interviewed over 100 people. And the thing is that nobody wants to talk to you when they're down. So, we're okay to reflect once we've picked ourselves up.
Sure.
But until we've picked ourselves up, it's a little tough. And you don't have time, right? You're still trying to figure out how to pick yourself up.
Right.
And so you tend to get the stories from people who've picked themselves up. And I think that's great. And the second thing is, entrepreneurship is about experimenting, right? So entrepreneurs are successful because they don't know the rules.
Right.
And they discover that the rules don't count anyway, because the rules count for stuff that was in the past, and they're doing things that are in the future, and therefore the rules are not so relevant, right?
I like that. And I'm not even sure that anyone's really put it in those terms, but I do like, in order to be an entrepreneur, you've got to be willing to break the rules from the past to set the new ones,
Yep.
to really, what your current role is, business management working. So tell me a little bit. I sometimes ask this, but what does a day-to-day look like for
So I'm in a privileged position that I don't work every day, right? So I do some coaching work, and I do some speaking work. So I
Mhm.
have a few days a week in which I work. And the other days in the week, I work, but I don't get paid. And that work is working and thinking or writing, right? So I think we've come past the stage where you have to be active to be considered working, and thinking wasn't considered working, right? I mean, you see those great cartoons with, the guy and the manager with his leg on the table, and then somebody
Mhm.
walks by and says, when are you going to get to work? And he says, my work is thinking.
Yeah.
And so my days are, I tend to mix. Some days are busy and some days are not. So
Mhm.
it isn't a full-time job, but I like working with entrepreneurs and I like working with executives. And the stuff I speak about is all around entrepreneurship, but not just, Sari, entrepreneurship is a term that's been hijacked by entrepreneurs who want to start a business. And that's fine, that's great. I've been a reluctant entrepreneur 3 times. Each time didn't end well. So, I lost money, but I learned a lot of new things. And so you have a healthy respect for money, right? It comes, it goes. But you learn. So that type of entrepreneurship is great. What I think the world needs is more entrepreneurial thinking and working in large companies.
Mhm.
Because the companies that survive are the companies that are going to be entrepreneurial in the way they work, right? You today, if you have a large company, what happens in large companies, right? They tie your hands. You can't do this and you can't do
Right.
that. And if you're in charge of operations or in charge of sales, as I have been, much of your day comes in fighting with your own company. Why can't I do this? Why can't
Mhm.
I do this for the customer? Why can't I? And so large companies are so tied down by bureaucracy and red tape and process, they're losing out to entrepreneurs. And it's causing frustration in the rank and file. And when things go bad in large companies, it's the rank and file who pays the price. It's never the guy at the top, right?
Right.
And I think that's why we need to rethink management. Management has to go back to the basics. And the basics is entrepreneurship. The basics is about trust. The basic is about respect your people. The basic is about rewarding your people, right? You can't have the old system where all the reward flows up to a few
Right.
owners and only those guys decide what to do. And then middle management, customer facing management, what happens to these guys, right? They're caught.
How do you go into, I mean, I like that philosophy of, I think that's when a company really has real thinking and real change within a company and real breakthroughs. And the companies that don't embrace that are stuck in their ways. How do you facilitate yourself into getting companies to see that? Because I think that after a year and a half of a pandemic, and here in the United States, we're going back to work, we're nervous about going back to work. There's a lot,
Yep.
and I'm sure Malaysia's experiencing, we're not all different, we're not very different when we
Yes.
in our worlds of
Yes.
wherever we are. But I think that there's this, sometimes it's easy to just keep going as opposed to shake up, change. And I think this pandemic for some opened the eyes of doing things differently.
And sorry, you're forced in that position, right? Look at the conversation that we're having, right? Typically what would happen, you'd go down and you have a coffee with somebody.
Mhm.
Today, you can't have a coffee with anybody, right?
Right.
And so that's what I tell, the people that I work with, that the borders may be closed, but the communities are wide open. You can reach anywhere, people have time to speak to you.
Mhm.
There's no more distinction that, oh, because you can have a coffee with me, you have an advantage over me with a client. No, we're all now the same, right? So the pandemic is an example of what I tell companies. Change the infrastructure, change the rules, and behavior will follow.
Mm.
We've spent too many years thinking about the soft approach to culture. I love people, but if you want change fast, you can get it done. And the pandemic has proven it. People
Yes.
who, people used to be paid to sit in the office. And if I didn't see you in the office and you came 10 minutes late, you got ticked off.
Right.
What happened to all those guys who were going to tick you off for coming late? It made no sense because their mindset was fixated on the past, which is if I see you in the office from 9 to 5, I can assume you're working.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Yeah.
logic to that.
There's, and I often say that we have to look for some of the good of this pandemic worldwide, globally. And I think that you just hit upon that is some of the things in the workforce have been proven to be very true, that people can work globally from wherever and be productive when they're allowed to be. I'm experiencing, that within my own kids of, some being forced to go back into work environments that aren't as creative or conducive as they just were in the past year. And, I've guided my own kids to say, you need to remind your management, look what we've just accomplished in the last year of me not sitting in a cubicle. Let's take this conversation and grow from, it's not that we weren't successful before, but when we all went home because we had to, we didn't close up and close down.
Yes.
Many people learn to do that pivot and adapt and grow.
Correct.
And I think it's, this is where it's time to now have those conversations. And I like that you're saying that's when you become the true entrepreneur.
Exactly. And the younger companies, because they start with a clean slate,
Mm-hmm.
they're not stuck in all these processes, and they're very output focused. They have to trust people because they don't have that many people to look after other people who look after other people. And,
Mm-hmm.
and in large organizations, you have managers who manage other managers who manage other managers,
Right.
who compile information and send it to this guy. And, they're all busy doing what you don't know. And now suddenly with the pandemic, it's been hard for some people because for a lot of people, they realize the organization now is functioning without them.
Right.
That's a big shock.
Yes.
And if you talk to people and they are struggling with what to do, it's not an easy time for them. And I call these people custodians of procedure, because that's what they're supposed to do. They're custodians of procedure.
They're used to that.
And now the procedure is just, where's it gone, right?
Right. And different.
What happened to lunch break and tea break and all that kind of stuff, right? And we all know that sitting in the office is not always productive.
No, I mean, I think, I think that I just try and say we've got to find the balance of the productivity,
Yes.
because we used to punch a clock 9 to 5 didn't make us productive. I mean,
Correct.
And not that we all punch the clock, but that mindset of I work 9 to 5, I've just always worked from home, raised my kids, and I used to laugh and say if I had to go to a dance class with my daughter or a lacrosse game, then I came home and worked another hour, and I worked for myself, or I didn't, but that was on me for my productivity. And
Correct.
And not everybody is in that that ability. Some, if you work in a store and the store is only open this amount of time, there are different, but that's why I think there's that balance of what works for your company to grow, but you can't stick yourself back into the 9 to 5 or, because I think we have seen that we can have, that out of the box thinking. And I think,
That's right.
Tell me a little bit before I let you go, a little bit about 9 entrepreneurisms, a little bit
Okay.
more, and how we find your book.
All right. So 9 entrepreneurisms, let me give a quick plug for it. 9 entrepreneurisms is really born about from my desire and my co-author's desire to understand why entrepreneurs do things, right? And at the end of the day, I think we find that entrepreneurs are not different people. They just do things very differently. And if you can do the things that you do differently, you will become entrepreneurial. And so what we did is we did 100 over interviews. We researched the topic and we ended up with what I call 9 entrepreneurisms. And these 9 are the entrepreneurisms that define an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So, there isn't time to go into all of them, but let me just give you one, which is very important, and that's self-efficacy. You have to know what you're good at.
Mhm.
Whether you're a company, whether you're an individual, you have to know what you're good at. You have to know your competence. And the second is passion. People associate passion with entrepreneurs, but you can build that passion into existing companies. I mean, I've worked for a shipyard. I worked for a budget hotel group. I worked for a fast food business, right?
Mhm.
In every business that you do, you need to find your purpose. And when you find your purpose, you can build passion into it.
Mhm.
And if you have passionate people working for you, your business will do well because they do the extra mile, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I work for a budget hotel group. Small rooms, no room service, no phone in the room, initially no TV in the room. But we hired people who believed that what we wanted to do was valuable. We conserve resources. We have small rooms. We don't overcharge you for
Right.
one night that you're going to stay, right? So companies need to find that purpose. And I think for large companies, it's a major problem. They need to find it.
Well, I think it's interesting. I am doing a lot of media segments right now about company culture. And
Okay.
I think that that's really what you're hitting on, that you can go to work every day. And I think
Yes.
the day's pretty long if you're just going to work. And that's that old punch the, I think,
Yeah.
our grandparents punched the clock. They had to make a living. And I
Yes.
think it's okay when you want to make a living, but I think I say every day, I am so blessed what I do because the days are long and I love everything I do, even on those bad days, because,
Sure.
and I try and tell my kids, not every day is rainbows and unicorns. Guess what?
That's the new parenting style, right? It's
Right.
it's okay to be sad.
Right. Well, some days suck, some days aren't so great. But if you love what you're doing, that's the goal. And,
Yes.
because I always say, I love what I'm doing. So, on those days, those moments, you want to hit your head against the wall. You only want to hit your head against the wall for a moment, because
Yes.
the overall is that passion to help
No.
people, to tell their story. But I do think it is the job of, whether it's the top person, the manager, to help share that passion and to really explain that company culture. And I do think that people who have bosses who come in and it's like, oh, here we are again, that's what you're going to get,
Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
walk in and someone's like, today's a great day, you're going to get that out of your people. And, and I do believe, just like when your parents, your kids, you're the mirror to your kids. I believe that, your leadership
Yep.
in a workforce, you are the
And
mirror.
Sari, it's so critically important now because the disruption that happened in the auto industry in America in the 70s
Sure.
is going to happen now in middle management in every company around the world.
Oh yeah, I mean, we, here in Detroit, we're the auto industry, but the housing market, there's gonna, we're in for a little rough time. We're not,
Yes.
we're globally, I say that because you and I are global friends right now, and that we're in this together, and globally, from a health standpoint, from an economic standpoint, we all do this together. We are not on an island alone. And I think that, when you create positively and passionately,
Yes.
we move forward much better. And we see that, we know that.
And
Go ahead.
it's well put, right? And it's what I call an unboxed world. So the whole world is just open. And you can go anywhere, you can hire anybody,
Yeah.
you can build a team anywhere in the world.
Very.
All the old rules of you have to hire diploma, degree people, it's all out the door.
Yeah.
Right.
You need to hire the creative, passionate force that is going to help you grow.
Correct.
So where do people find you? I've put a website in my link, but
so it's easiest to find me on LinkedIn or Facebook. I'm much more active on LinkedIn, so that'd be a good place to find me.
Wonderful. I enjoy this time together. You have an open invitation to come back anytime and let me know what's happening with you, and share more insights on your book and how everything is going. And anytime.
Thanks, Sari. It's been great speaking with you, and we all wish everybody well.
We do.
These are times where you have to have faith and find relevance.
I believe so. I think our workforce is going back to work. Our families are sending kids back to school, and I'm a firm believer that you have to advocate for yourself and for your team around you. But I'm a storyteller by heart, and I think
that's what all entrepreneurs do, right?
And I think you have to do it with a positive message. That's what we need a lot of right now.
Great.
So I thank you for your book. The new book is 9
Entrepreneurisms. Yeah.
Entrepreneurism.
It's a tough one to say, but we thought the word was good, but we didn't realize how difficult it would be to say it.
But it's a good one because then it sticks with you.
All right.
Have a blessed day. Good
You too.
talking to you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.